This is Robert Mardlachi of the Mindshare Learning Report, Canada's Learning and Technology e-magazine. And welcome to This Week in Canadian EdTech special edition. I'm honored to have joined me for a Mindshare Learning moment, Bill Bass, who's the past president of ISTE, the International Society of Technology and Education, on MindShareTV. We're going to get his expert reflections on ISTE Live 22 that happened in New Orleans and sharing some insights on what to expect for back to school as well. Bill, thank you for joining me this afternoon.
Thanks. I'm really happy to be here. I appreciate the invite.
Well, a little bit about Bill. Bill is the Innovation Coordinator for Instructional Technology and Information Library and Media and Federal Programs in the Parkway School District in St. Louis, Missouri. ISTE Board past president. Bill, I understand you mentioned earlier that you've got a bit of rain coming down, or a lot of rain for that matter. The weather patterns are out of whack these days, it seems.
Yeah, we've had more rain today in the St. Louis area than any other recorded time on history, and it's here. It's only 11 a.m. So there's a lot of things, a lot of people who are having some issues today. Luckily, I think everybody is safe, and we are. We just have to deal with it.
Well, all the best to you, and stay safe. And thank you again for taking the time out of your busy schedule, because you are no doubt preparing for back to school, which is going to happen mid-August. But before we do that, let's reflect for a moment on ISTE Live, and that was the first in-person in a couple of years post-pandemic, we hope. How did it feel to be back?
It was really amazing. The amount of energy that was generated just by the people who were there was really remarkable. This was our last ISTE live in person was in 2019 in Philadelphia.
Right.
And so for 2020 2020, 2021, we were virtual, and we had a great turnout. We had great events, but the difference between being in person and being able to walk up to you and shake your hand and say hello and connect in a different way, it really was remarkable. And honestly, I was surprised at the number of people who were able and willing to come. There were over 11,000 people in person. Now that's
incredible.
That's less than what it normally is, but it was still the number of people, the energy at the conference. It was really a remarkable show.
It truly was, and it was also hybrid too. So in total, you had about 15,000, I believe.
Yeah,
amazing. And you were busy. You were involved in 8 presentations. Talk about the growth mindset. You are the epitome of that.
Well, thanks for that. I was hopping every day. There were at least 3 to 4 things, events, presentations meetings that I was attending. Luckily, I feel very fortunate to have the connection that I have with ISTE and to have the connection with the people that I know. As a past president, I've had some really interesting experiences and all. And I just feel so fortunate to be able to go and share my expertise in different areas, such as digital content and library and emerging technologies. There were so many different conversations that I got to have, and they were so different to be in person again. We forget what it's like to be able to just be walking down the hall and stop somebody and say, "Hey, let's have this conversation about virtual reality," for instance. And it was a remarkable couple of days.
Fascinating. And it's as much as about the formal learning sessions as well as the informal, as you alluded to, connecting with people along the way. And we were grateful. You talk about partnerships and leadership, powerful partnerships. And we were grateful to have you join us at our Can-Am, our 24th Can-Am Celebration of Excellence partnering event. And you were there as a past president, along with the the legend himself, Dr. Gary Bitter, who was the first president 50 some odd years ago. Incredible history, and the relationships that are that long standing is amazing to me.
Yeah, it really is. It really is great to think about, Gary Bitter as the very first president of ISTE ever, and all the way up until now, where myself as past president and our current president, just the ability to have that organizational and institutional knowledge and be able to see where we came from, to be able to understand. I don't know if you're aware, ISTE was created at a backyard barbecue that people were having at the University of Oregon.
And I did not know that.
Yeah, so that live connection, and it was just a handful of people, but they were thinking, and this was 40, 50 years ago, thinking technology is changing. We need to figure this out. And so that's how ISTE was born. Just a couple people who were really interested at the higher ed level, were really interested in making sense of what the internet and the World Wide Web and technology, this advent of computers that were coming, how that was going to impact what we do every day in our classrooms.
And that was pre-internet, wasn't it? Like it literally was
pre-internet.
Pre-internet. Yeah. I was sport information director at a university pre-internet and pre-computer. So you imagine doing posters promoting events with a lecture set. That was you might be too young for that, Bill. But anyway, I'm dating myself.
It is remarkable, though. Yeah.
But it speaks to the growth mindset. Talk to me about the exhibit floor. I mean, I ran into a couple of educators, and I always like to get their perspective. And what do you think? And they were overwhelmed. Like I said, well, you got to focus on what's important to you, right? Because you can overwhelm yourself with all of these exhibitors and doohickeys, but there was some amazing innovation and energy in that exhibit hall, which had 500 exhibitors.
Yeah, I don't know what the exact number was, but it was in the range of 500. There were a lot of people. Now I think about my first ISTE, and it was NEC back then. It was.
And what year was that? So it was NEC. Okay, was it Chicago?
Yeah, it was NEC. I believe it was 2006, 2005 or 2006. So it's been a number of years. But I think about that, and I think about when I first walked into that exhibit hall, and just like your eyes get big, and you're like, I don't even know where to start here. And so every time I take people from my own district, we have a meeting in advance. I'm like, listen, you don't even understand. Like, you think you've been to conferences before. I understand. You don't even understand what it's like. But it's really what I think about the exhibit hall is, yes, it's a great time to connect with those companies that you are doing business with in your school district, those tools that are so valuable for teachers in the classroom. But I also think it's where you can see the future. It's where you can see, it's a lot of times where different companies will announce things.
Right.
It's the space where they can demonstrate and showcase and really talk to you about the different types of applications that each one of these tools shares with you. And there's something for everyone. That is what is so amazing about it. There's something for everyone. You can go to, like the bigger names like the Googles and Microsofts and all that. But then you can also, in our startup pavilion, see people who are just beginning to think about how to get into EdTech. And they have a product. It may not even be on the market yet. Like it's so vast, just the experience that people can have. And I love the fact that as people walk through that exhibit space, they really do get a sense of this is what the classroom could be like at some point in our future.
Thank you for that. What I found fascinating was the technology that was there is, now starting, after years of talking about certain tools, the conversations were very rich. When you visited an exhibitor, the pedagogical knowledge. So going back to 2006, and I predate that. I go back to the late 90s. Was my first NEC, 98.
Mm-hmm.
So the progression in our sector and the knowledge base, we're inspired now to create a EdTech as a career option micro credential,
Mm-hmm.
because that is a profession now that's legit. EdTech didn't exist 20 years ago, the notion of EdTech.
Right.
But now it's become, there's such a demand for pedagogical leaders. And as teachers are going into teachers college, you don't need to go into a school environment necessarily either, right? You might want to go for a few years, but EdTech as a career option is something that we're focused on and launching this fall. But the knowledge of the sales reps, the product or reps, was impressive to me.
Yeah.
Those conversations were pretty rich and deep. So it gives confidence to those the leaders and those who are looking to purchase, that these people know what they're talking about. And the passion of EdTech folks, because I've been immersed in it over 25 years. So I go back to Kevin O'Leary and Shark's Tank, Dragon's Den, who launched the Learning Company, and I launched this startup in Canada, the TLC School Division. And we've come a long way. We've come such a long way. And kudos to you for your leadership and growth mindset in contributing, because you're past president. You can just kind of cruise along and take in the conferences and rest on your laurels, but you're still highly engaged in your programs and your contribution. Let's talk about partnerships and the importance of partnerships, because coming out of the pandemic, there's a lot to learn. There are a lot of lessons.
Yeah.
And identifying the partners that will help you make an impact is really important, because not all EdTechs are created equally.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good way to say it. That there's not all tools are created equal, and not everybody needs the same thing. Like and even in a school district, I think about my district. I have 28 schools in my district, and so when I look at that, every one of those has their own community, and they need to be able to partner in different ways. And that doesn't mean we don't have standards and we have alignment and all that, but we have to recognize that everyone has different needs, right? And so the partners, what I think about when I think about partnerships, specific partners, I categorize them in three different ways. I categorize partners in terms of thinking partners, right? People who are going to push me, people like you, right? Who have organizations that are continuing to think and share and bring life to our classrooms, right? So I think about it. One set of partners is our thinking partners. Another set of partners is our vendors, right? Our business partners, where it is truly a business relationship, but really we have to rely on them, and they have to rely on us. We have to rely on them to continue to update our product, to be responsive to us, and to be able to provide feedback both ways, right? So there's this business partners, and then the third one that I think about a lot is the pedagogical partners, and the people who are really pushing us to make learning experience for students that are authentic and that are going to provide them with structure and understanding, so that they will be able to adapt to whatever comes in the future. So those three types of partners, they overlap in a lot of ways, right? It's not, but we need all three of those in different ways in order to really do what we need and want to do for our students, and that's to prepare
Well
them for
said.
their futures and prepare them to, kind of lead us in the future, because at some point, we are going to be doing other things and, enjoying our retirement and things like that. And we're going to need teachers. We're going to need people to take the reins and really continue those three types of partnerships in the future, because we can't do it alone. It really is, educating students is one of those things that we really do have to find our people who can influence us and who we can influence at the same time. And so it's not one way. It's not because we write a check to a vendor that suddenly we're all set. We don't need anything. We need to maintain those relationships and that constant feedback loop going both directions.
Absolutely, and it's about community and finding your tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And ISTE really stepped up its game in that regard. And I was so impressed with the index that you have with all the tools.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was on with the CIO yesterday on a licenses with some 200 EdTech companies, some 200 licenses of software products as a service. So imagine, each year you got to identify whether, this is going to return as a service or not based on analytics.
But you know what? It's even more than analytics.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's even more than analytics. It's not as much as, when I think about things, yeah, we can tell what our usage is, we can tell how many people are using it, and that is one data point along the way when we decide whether we're going to use it. But, privacy policies change sometimes. We have different needs. Our needs shift with our students every year. And so we may not need those things, that same tool year to year, but we do need a place where we can go and find those tools and find what is going to work for us. And it's an awareness piece, and it's really, it's one of the things that I am very proud of ISTE for having this. And it was part of the EdSurge partnership that we have, that really, when we're thinking about tools and services that we need and want, we have to know what those capabilities are. And the fact that we can review and connect with other people who are using it in there are so many pieces that are really valuable, and not just valuable for the end user, but valuable as we evaluate, and also, can be really valuable for parents as well, and the families that come to us.
Absolutely. How many apps would you estimate a student or teacher use in a week? Have you done that analysis?
Yeah, so we have in our K-12 environment, we have about 1,500 apps that people use to varying capacities.
Wow.
Some of them are free. Yeah, it's a lot. Some of them are free. Some of them are, we haven't distinguished. We have our set that we buy as a district, but so many of these services are things that students can interact with that we may not have thought, oh yeah, this is a thing that is valuable for education. But I think that's one of the shifts that's happening, is the empowerment of students when it comes to the tools that they use and being able to decipher for themselves what kinds of things they want and need for their own learning. And I think that's one of those things that they find the tool, and just because we didn't give it to them doesn't mean it's not valuable, and doesn't mean that there is an opportunity for us to learn from those. And that's
brilliant.
One of the things that I think that the EdTech, that index gives us, is then it gives us, if we have a student who comes and says, hey, this is a thing that I'd like to use, we can say, hey, there's index that we can like look at and make sure that it's safe and make sure that there aren't additional things that we need to be thinking of. And it really changes the conversation.
Amazing. What is your perspective on that report that came out from the West Virginia not-for-profit? I think they presented at COSN. 85% of EdTech installations fail. They estimated some research. What advice do you have? What is your advice to EdTechs? Because you talk about partnership, right? And I stress the importance of the pilot, the implementation, have a Gantt chart, be on top of your game if you want to be successful and continue to work with a district.
I think so.
What's your
thing
approach?
that I think is, the thing for me that I think is the biggest is you have to have educator voice in your product, wherever that lives, and whatever audience you're trying to get to. Find somebody to pilot it. Find somebody to that can speak to the EdTech community. And understands what happens in schools on a daily basis. And I think the disconnect that happens, for those 85% that fail, right? I think that the disconnect there is that they don't have that educator voice, which means they don't have teacher buy-in. Anytime that I'm going to introduce a new tool, I need my teachers on it. I need my teachers to tell me what the things are that they care most about. Because I'm not in a classroom, and I haven't been in a classroom for a while, and it's not, I don't hide that, but at the same time, I rely on my teachers. And so when in terms of partnerships, if somebody comes to me and wants me to purchase or use their product or whatever, I need to know that teachers actually care about it, because we only have a limited amount of time with kids.
Well said, Bill. Well said. So let's talk about the takeaways. I mean, I didn't have a lot of time to reflect because I was on another plane going somewhere else after ISTE, and wow, I'm still unpacking a lot of my experience. What were some of your top takeaways in having experience? And it was you were there a good 4 days? 5 days?
Yeah, I was there from Friday to Wednesday, so it was almost. Yeah, I mean, it was five full days for me.
That's a total immersion into the world of EdTech, which is amazing after 2-3 years.
It is. It's great though. I love it. When I think about my takeaways, I think about 3 things really. I think first of all, one of the things that Richard Collada, CEO of ISTE, said at the very beginning of the conference was, we want to bring joy back to learning. And I think that's one of the things that I continue to think about is, okay, we want to bring joy back to learning. We want kids to love learning. There was a disruption that occurred. We have a shortage of teachers. We need to bring that joy back to learning and make sure that we provide those authentic experiences for our students. I think that's one of the things. A second thing, another takeaway, data privacy is huge. And the conversation, first of all, let me say, I'm happy that we're having the conversation about data privacy. It's about
100%.
time. We need that conversation. However, it is such a big unknown, and it's something that so many people struggle with to understand and really be able to address. That is still one of those ongoing things that we need to continue to have conversations about. So that's the second thing. Data privacy is an important piece. And the third thing is teachers are amazing. When I went around, I went to the poster sessions, I went to the playgrounds, I went and saw sessions and all. And the things that teachers did during COVID, during the pandemic, during our shutdown, were ridiculous, right? And we hear about those instances where teachers are struggling and we didn't do it well and all that. And then I go and I talk to all these folks, and they did great things for their kids. We adapted in record time. And I just think about, we have such, there's such opportunity here to kind of continue that ball running and to celebrate teachers. And actually, Robert, I'm going to add one more thing. So here's my fourth takeaway. The equity issues that we see inside of education are still very real. And it's still something that we could spend, another entire session on equity when it comes to innovating, leading innovation through education. But we have to figure out how to reach all of our kids, not just the ones that we feel as though, that have the means themselves in order to learn.
Amazing.
Along the way.
Let me, we're just experiencing a little lag here. Let me just click on something. Okay, so that should do the trick. Sorry, we were lagging a little bit.
It's all right.
I appreciate that, your tips. And how do you stay at the top of your game? How do you, in closing, how do you stay at the top of your game? What advice do you have for other leaders or emerging leaders that want to progress through the ranks? Because it is a journey, and it's a never-ending one.
Yeah, it really is. And Robert, I think one of the things, and you said it earlier, find your people, find your tribe, find those people who are going to not just agree with you, but push you. In order to stay current, recognize that you're not going to know everything. Recognize that that's okay, right? Recognize that you don't have to be the fountain of knowledge. What you have to be is willing to learn and be able to connect other people with that knowledge and with other people who have that knowledge. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I think about. I rely on my network so often, and I rely on other people who have spent more time thinking about a specific topic. And so, in that same vein, you can't be afraid to ask. You can't be afraid to ask for help, and you can't be afraid to, even hesitant to say, I need somebody to give me advice. I need to give somebody to give me guidance, and I need somebody to help me along the way.
Well said, Bill Bass. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It was great to talk to you.
I hope you get a little downtime before the wave hits you with back to school. And that was Bill Bass, Innovation Coordinator for Instructional Technology, Information, Library, Media, and Federal Programs in the Parkway School Division, St. Louis, Missouri, past ISTE President. My name is Robert Mertolacci, the MindShare Learning Report. Be sure to check out www.MindShareLearning to get your latest issue. Until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the learning curve